Welcome to HP Fanfiction. Support me by subscribing the channel. Also, like and share the video to keep me motivated to make more videos like these.
It would take 2 weeks for the duo to feel both comfortable and ready with the plan they had come up with to meet with the deranged woman. In that time, they did something they had never done before. They trained together on a daily basis. Harry had to admit that he was very impressed with the skill of his godfather and shared the sentiment with the man. "You've really been training," he said to the man in disbelief at his prowess with a wand. "Every day," Sirius replied. "Fudge might have got his head out of his arse, but there still aren't enough capable Aurors, so it looks like it is up to me and you for now," he said with a shrug. "The way it should have been from the start," he added, placing his arm around the teen's shoulders. "It looks like your grandfather was right," Harry responded with a grin. "What do you mean?" Sirius questioned with a frown. "That this war needs another Potter-Black alliance," Harry answered with a smile. "Then we will make sure we give them everything the Potters and the Blacks have." Sirius vowed with a grin. "We will show those bastards why they shouldn't have ever messed with our families," he added. "Our family," Harry corrected. "We are one big family now," he said with a smile. "The way it should be." Sirius agreed, returning the smile. The two trained together, putting together the skill they both possessed. They learned how to fight in tandem with one another and soon realized that they shared a style very similar and just as effective as their grandfathers before them. It warmed Harry to no end that he had his godfather to rely on and he could see the same feeling reflected in the other man's eyes. It was them against the world, and neither could be happier about it. Harry made sure that he wrote regularly to Daphne since the day of the funeral. Realizing how much he truly cared for the girl had made it one of his priorities and something he would not take for granted again. He found himself looking forward to her replies even if she just told him about the day she had or what she had planned with her family and Tracy. It gave him a semblance of normality, something he would need if he was to function in a normal society after this war was over. He found that he did indeed miss the girl and looked forward to seeing her again. He would lie awake in bed at night writing to her and thinking of the time they had spent, and it just had not been enough. He vowed to change that in the near future. They had decided between them that the cave in Hogsmeade that Harry had met Sirius during 4th year would be a good place to meet with Bellatrix. It was well out of the way and they were guaranteed privacy. Sirius would be there under the invisibility cloak to make sure nothing untoward happened. They apparated to the cave, and Sirius hid beneath the cloak as Harry summoned the woman to them by replying to the note. "Lestrange, use the ring your grandfather left you. I trust your sister gave it to you. It will bring you directly to me. You have my vow that I will not attack you, and I have not informed anyone outside the family of this meeting. I'm waiting. Potter." He tapped the note with his wand as instructed, and after a moment it disappeared in a burst of black flames. Now all that was left to do was wait for the woman to appear, to which she did less than 10 minutes later. "Potter," she called as she appeared in the dark cave with her wand drawn. "Put it away, Lestrange," Harry commanded as he emerged from a shadowy corner, his own wand in hand. Bellatrix complied and placed her wand up her sleeve. She raised her hands to show that she was unarmed as she stepped closer to the teen, who returned the gesture by replacing his own wand in its holster. My, Bellatrix intoned, stroking Harry's cheek, who recoiled from her touch. "You have become quite the man, Lord Black," she added, biting her lip. "What do you want?" Harry asked impatiently. "What? No flirting or fun?" Bellatrix asked with a pout. "I'm sure we could have lots of fun," she whispered sultrily into his ear, and ran her tongue across his lobe. "I don't think so," Harry said, pushing her away with a grimace. "You're old enough to be my mother, and the years haven't exactly been kind to you," he added, gesturing to her emaciated figure and gaunt looks. "Now what do you want?" he questioned her again. Bellatrix frowned petulantly and folded her arms. "Fine," she said irritably. "By now I'm sure you have figured out that it was my darling husband who killed my grandfather," she stated matter-of-factly. "Yes," Harry growled angrily. "Well then, how about I give him to you?" she offered casually. "And why would you do that?" Harry asked with a disbelieving frown. "Call it family duty and doing us both a favor," Bellatrix replied with a shrug. "I want rid of the Neanderthal, and you want your revenge, and no one harms a member of my family," she huffed indignantly. "You care about your family?" Harry asked with a raised eyebrow. "Of course," Bellatrix simpered. "I made my choices a long time ago, but I do not take my blood for granted. I am a Black, A member of the greatest wizarding family in existence, she added sincerely. Even though most of them fight against your master? Harry questioned further. The Dark Lord has become rather boring, Bellatrix said, pacing the cave. Believe it or not, he was once very handsome and very well put together. He feared no one, and I followed him proudly, she proclaimed. But now all he does is moan about Harry Potter and how you have defied him and how he wants to kill you. It is rather boring, she finished. That hardly justifies a change of heart, Harry pointed out. It is power that attracts me, Potter, not foolish ideologies, and I have seen him vulnerable, she replied with a frown. Now don't get me wrong, I still despise the Mudbloods, but I am intelligent enough to know that our kind cannot survive with just pure bloods. There isn't enough of us, and you and the Dark Lord are living proof that blood does not denote power. He fears you, but you don't fear him. I can see it, she continued, looking the young man in the eye. If you had come along much sooner, maybe my life would have been different. But I made my choices long ago, and I have to stand by them. She finished firmly. You know he's a half-blood, then? Harry asked, a little surprised. Of course. You don't think I would follow someone with a clearly made-up name without knowing everything about him, do you? She asked with a raised eyebrow. It's like I said, it is power that attracts me, not blood nor beliefs, she reaffirmed. Harry thought about everything she said and found that Arcturus had been right about her. She was indeed very intelligent, but she had certainly made poor choices in life. What do you want in return for handing over your husband? He asked skeptically. If I survive the war, I want a low-security cell with no dementors or other horrible creatures, she answered firmly. You do realize I am not an Auror, Harry responded with a raised eyebrow. No, but you will have more say than most, once this is all over, Bellatrix said knowingly. You will be able to do that at the very least, she added. So you think I will beat him? Harry asked the woman. Oh, that I have no doubt of, Bellatrix replied lustily. He already fears you, and that is half the battle won. Fine, if I can do it, then I will, Harry conceded. But there is something else I want from you, he added. Anything, Bellatrix replied, biting her lip again. I want to know of any major attacks in advance, and you will not fight to kill anymore, he said, with a non-compromising tone. You want me to spy? She asked, squinting distastefully. Call it family duty, Harry responded with a grin. Fine, Bellatrix sighed, but I don't know about everything, she said warningly. You can't hold it against me if I just don't know. I won't, he said with a shrug. Harry suddenly frowned as a wave of magic passed over him. It was not a comforting magic, but was more of a warning. It took him a moment to realize what it was, and he stiffened in realization. Natalie, he whispered. Huh? Bellatrix asked dumbly. Do you know of any attacks tonight? He asked her urgently. No, only that Lucius has been sent to do something, she informed him, shaking her head. Sirius, we have to go, he called to his godfather. Contact me through your sister, he instructed Bellatrix. I will find a way so we can stay in touch, he added. Harry grabbed his godfather's arm as he approached, and the pair vanished from sight silently, leaving a very bemused Bellatrix in their wake. Break. Lucius Malfoy, along with Finrod Greyback and a score of his own men, arrived at the orphanage where the McDonald girl spent her time away from Hogwarts. It hadn't taken too much effort to find the place, but they had waited until the full moon was only a day or so away to make the werewolves more feral in the attack. Even werewolves were reluctant to attack children unless they had little control of themselves, and the days leading up to the night of the change were perfect. Greyback had wanted to do it on the night of the full moon, but Lucius had firmly disagreed. He did not want to be killed by a group of werewolves, and the Dark Lord did not trust only them to carry this out. They were nothing but mindless fools, and he did not want risk it failing. So Lucius had been tasked to help them, much to his chagrin. He hated the disgusting creatures, but would do as his lord had bid. The group approached the orphanage and casually knocked on the door. After a moment, the door was opened by a squat and middle-aged muggle woman. Good evening, Madam, Lucius drawled with a bow. I am looking for a Natalie MacDonald. I am a representative of the school she attends, and I just need a few moments of her time, he explained. The woman just frowned at him. The lady who came said we would only be contacted by her, and she would write first, she explained. I will therefore have to decline your request, she finished, and made to close the door. Lucius placed his foot in the doorway to stop it from closing. I must insist on seeing her, he said threateningly. For fuck's sake, Malfoy, just move the bitch. Greyback growled and barreled into the door, knocking the woman to the ground. Where is the MacDonald girl? He questioned angrily. Greek. Natalie MacDonald had not been happy since returning to the orphanage for the summer holidays. The other children had refused to speak to her, thinking that she got preferential treatment for being sent to a private school, and she missed the castle and being able to do magic. She had spent the holiday so far in her room completing her homework, something she had promised Harry that she would do as best she could. She wanted the older boy to be proud of her, and she wanted to show him how much she appreciated him looking after her. She was currently sad in her room as she spent most of her time when she heard a loud shout, followed by a loud bang coming from downstairs. She shrugged and continued scratching away with her quill. This was not an uncommon occurrence in the home. There were around 20 children living here, so it was rarely quiet. She was pulled from her work again as another shout, much closer, rang throughout the house. "Where is the MacDonald girl? You bitch, I won't ask you again." A very loud and animalistic voice questioned someone in fury. Natalie stiffened in fear. Why would someone be looking for her? She panicked and jumped off her bed and rolled underneath. It was then that she remembered her necklace that Harry had given her. She removed it from her top and clutched it tightly, thinking of the boy as he had told her to. She just hoped that he would come. Break. Harry and Sirius arrived on a street with houses lining either side. They both heard the commotion coming from the building directly in front of them, and Sirius placed a firm hand on Harry's shoulder. "Werewolves," he said knowingly, sniffing the air in confirmation. "But it's not a full moon," Harry pointed out. "They are more resistant to magic closer to the full moon, and it's tomorrow," Sirius replied knowingly, living with 2 of them himself. "Silver then," Harry instructed, to which Sirius nodded. The pair hurriedly began conjuring silver daggers and arrows to stab with or banish towards the werewolves. "Let's go," Harry said. The pair entered the house to hear screams sounding from several directions. "Split up?" Sirius asked worriedly. "Yeah," Harry agreed reluctantly. "But call if you need me," he added firmly. Sirius nodded his agreement and broke off. He headed upstairs while his godson remained on the ground floor. Harry entered the first room. He came to see 2 shabbily dressed men attacking a woman who could not be any older than 20. He felt his anger rise, and he quickly banished 2 daggers into the backs of the attackers, who screamed in agony as they hit the floor. He helped the woman to her feet, who had luckily only suffered a few cuts and bruises. "Stay here," Harry commanded, and exited the room before the woman could say a word. He didn't have time to waste. He entered the next room to half a dozen of the werewolves in the company of Lucius Malfoy, who blanched at the teen's entrance. "It's Potter," he shouted in a panic. Harry did not hesitate and began banishing his projectiles indiscriminately towards the small crowd of people, dropping most of them instantly. He felt a great feeling of satisfaction watching one of the arrows embed itself in Malfoy's shoulder, causing the man to scream. "Oh, I've been waiting for this, Lucy," Harry growled menacingly. "Remember when you tried to use the killing curse on me in my second year?" he asked. "Maybe I should return the favor," he added, not waiting for the man to answer. "Potter, wait," Malfoy pleaded pathetically. "Actually, that curse is too quick for someone like you," Harry said amusedly. Before he could continue, he felt something solid impact against his side that sent him crashing into the wall. Shaking away the cobwebs, he saw Malfoy disappear. Clearly, the man had a portkey. Harry growled and turned towards the werewolf that had crashed into him, only to see the large man already in full charge towards him, having very little time to react. Harry simply braced himself and waited for the impact, and he quickly found himself on his back below a furious hulk of a man. Harry placed a hand on the man's throat to keep him at a distance, and used his free hand to reach for one of the daggers he had conjured. He pulled it from his belt and rammed it with all of his force into the man's gut. Feeling a warm and wet liquid spread all over his hands and torso after he had done so, the werewolf roared in pain, and Harry seized the advantage by rolling the man on his back so that he was on top now. After firming his position, he began perpetually stabbing the man with the dagger every place he could reach. It did not take long for him to fall still from the wounds he had received. He stood and realized that he was covered from head to toe in blood. He could even taste it in his mouth. He spat disgustedly and checked himself over for any wounds that he had not felt, and much to his relief, found nothing. He was pulled from his self-checking by shouting and screaming coming from upstairs. "Sirius," Harry shouted, and plowed his way as quickly as he could through the house, following the trail of bodies that had obviously fallen victim to his godfather. He charged up the stairs and raced across the landing where he could spot a few more bodies. He came to a door that had simply been ripped from his hinges, and entered the room to see Sirius on his back with what appeared to be a half-transformed werewolf on top of him, attempting to rip him to shreds. Harry roared in fury and fired a blasting curse at the beast, catching it in the back and sending it into the wall. Sirius immediately sprung to his feet and began savagely stabbing the creature repeatedly until it moved no more. Greyback, he groaned hoarsely and fell to his knees. Sirius Harry cried and ran forward to help the man. "It's just a few scratches," Sirius informed him. "I'll be fine," he added reassuringly. "Where's Natalie?" he asked, worriedly. "Natalie?" Harry called. "It's safe now. It's me, Harry." Harry heard a shuffle and turned to see the young girl pulling her shaking body from beneath the bed in the room. She ran forward and flung herself into Harry, who just pulled her tightly into her arms. "You came," she sobbed into his chest. "Always," Harry replied emotionally. "We have to get out of here," he added. "Just grab your wand. Everything else can be replaced," he instructed. "I already have it," she informed him, removing the piece of wood from her sleeve. "Good girl," Harry praised softly. "I'm going to apparate us away. It will be a little uncomfortable," he explained. He removed his wand and fired off a patronus before hoisting his godfather over one shoulder and pulling the girl to himself firmly, disapparating to Grimmauld Place. He needed to get help for Sirius. Break. Cornelius Fudge was sat in his office, going over budgets and trying to find ways to supplement the Auror force that he knew was not sufficient. It had been a long day, and he had decided that he would take the work home with him and look it over in the comfort of his living room. He had just finished fastening his cloak when a large patroness entered the room and spoke in the voice of Harry Potter. "Attack at orphanage in Whitby, several casualties and obliviation required." It spoke quickly. Cornelius shook his head. "So much for going home," he mused. "This is what being a real minister is about, I guess," he said to himself with a proud smile. He sent out an alert to the Aurors on duty and made his way to the atrium. He planned on attending with them. He wanted the people to know that he did care and that he would personally help when he could. Break. Lucius Malfoy arrived in his own drawing room in a heap and yelped in pain as he landed on the shoulder in which the arrow still protruded from. He looked around the room to see confused faces looking in his direction. "What happened, Lucius?" Voldemort questioned the man angrily. "Potter came, my lord." Lucius gritted out on pain. The Dark Lord screamed in fury. "Everybody get out," he spat. "Get out," he roared. The assembled Death Eaters fled the room as quickly as their legs would carry them. Bellatrix exited the room with a grin. "The Dark Lord really is like a spoilt child," she mused thoughtfully. "If he didn't want Potter dead so much, I would question his obsession with him," she chuckled internally. But then again, who would blame him, she thought, biting her bottom lip. She continued walking to her room, humming a tune to herself. Break. Harry arrived in the kitchen of Grimmauld Place, with Sirius draped over him and Natalie still clinging to him for dear life. After catching his bearings, he found that many people were staring at him with looks of shock and horror etched on their faces. Evidently, they had arrived in the middle of an order meeting. Padfoot Lupin shouted and sprung to his feet, quickly followed by Marlene. "What happened?" she asked urgently. "Werewolves," Harry answered simply. "We got a Mooney," Sirius cut in breathily. "What are you talking about, Padfoot?" Remus asked in confusion. Greyback Sirius replied. "We got him for you. He's dead." Remus pulled the man from his godson's shoulder and cradled him like a child. He began to weep as he hugged the man tightly. "Thank you," he said throatily. "Thank you," he repeated gratefully. "Are you okay?" Marlene asked him, clearly concerned. "It's just a few scratches," Sirius said dismissively. "Well, we had better get you cleaned up," Marlene said with a frown. "You too, Potter. You're covered in blood." "It's not mine," Harry said, and began cleaning the now congealing blood off of him with his wand. "And what made you two think it was a good idea to get into a fight with werewolves?" she asked firmly with a raised eyebrow. "They came to save me." Natalie piped up quietly. Marlene turned to look at the girl in surprise. Clearly she had not noticed her presence as yet. "And who might you be, young lady?" Marlene asked. "I'm Natalie MacDonald," the young girl replied shyly. "Ah, the one who calls him Princess." She nodded, jerking a thumb towards her fiancé. "He told me all about you." "That was supposed to be a secret." Sirius whined, still in his friend's arms. "Shut up, Princess," Marlene retorted, causing Natalie to giggle at the pout that appeared on Sirius's face. "Now, how about we get you some hot chocolate while Harry and Princess get themselves cleaned up," she suggested. Natalie looked at Harry nervously. "It's okay," Harry assured her. "Marlene will look after you." "Thank you," the girl said shyly to the older woman who took her hand and led her to the stove. Will someone heal my wounds now? Sirius asked irritably. Shut up, Princess, Harry mumbled and set to work on his godfather with the help of Remus. Between the two of them, it did not take long to close the wounds and administer a few potions to the grumbling marauder. I'll be as scarred as Moody, Sirius complained when they were finished. Sorry, Mad-Eye, he added, seeing the frown the gnarled man was giving him. They will heal fine, Remus informed him, shaking his head. You'll just need to find someone willing to put the ointment on for the next few days. Sirius looked hopefully at Marlene, who raised an eyebrow at him. It will be a cold day in hell before you have me smearing cream on your bum. Sirius Black, she told him. I don't have any wounds on my bum, the man huffed indignantly, and it would be an honor for anyone to be given such an opportunity to touch my perfectly formed buttocks, he added haughtily. There's a child present, you mutt, Marlene chided him. She does not need to hear the filth that comes from you, she added sternly. Yes, dear, a cowed Sirius replied. Someone must have told him about Natalie, Harry suddenly said angrily. He looked around the room and noticed there was one obvious absence. Where's Snape? He asked the group. That is why we are meeting, Dumbledore replied sadly. Severus has not been seen or heard from in several weeks now, he informed the younger man. Then he is either a traitor or he is dead, Harry said with a shrug. I believe that he is dead, Dumbledore responded. He would not turn his back on us, he added knowingly. How can you be sure? Tonks asked. Severus has his reasons, Dumbledore returned firmly. It doesn't matter, Harry cut in casually. Harry, Severus was a vital part of the Order. Dumbledore said seriously, I have my own eyes and ears on Tom, that, funnily enough, I trust more than I ever would Snape, he intoned with a frown at his own thoughts. He was always a bastard to me, and always would have been. I'm not sorry that he is gone, he finished shrugging again. You have your own spy? Remus asked disbelievingly. I do, Harry answered simply. If anything comes up that I think you need to be aware of, then I will pass it on, he informed the group. That would be appreciated, Dumbledore said gratefully, with a bow, purposely not asking Harry to reveal his source. He trusted the young man's judgment and would not question it. What are you going to do about Miss McDonald? Dumbledore asked. I haven't thought that far, Harry said sheepishly. She can stay here, Marlene cut in. You and Sirius are too busy with training and whatever else it is you get up to. It would be nice to have some company, she explained. Is that okay with you, Natalie? Harry asked. Would you like to stay with Marlene and Sirius? They can look after you properly better than I can, he added a little sadly. He knew it was what was best for the young girl. His life was not exactly stable enough for him to be looking after an 11-year-old full-time. Only if you promise to visit me lots, Natalie replied. And you still look after me like you said you would, she said, hugging the older boy. I promise, Harry responded, a little emotionally, as he pulled her into a hug. Then it's okay with me. Natalie agreed with the older woman, who smiled at her. Then let us find you a bedroom, and we will have to take you shopping too. Marlene frowned as she led the girl from the room. Harry, a timid voice, questioned him from the doorway. Harry turned to see a brown blur launch towards him, and he barely managed to catch the excited girl in his arms. Hello, Hermione, he greeted his friend with a soft smile. What are you doing here? He asked in confusion. My parents are working in South America, so Professor Dumbledore suggested I stayed here, Hermione answered. I'm really sorry about Mr. Black, she added sincerely. It's okay, Hermione, I'm starting to accept the fact he's gone now. Harry replied a little unconvincingly. Why don't you and Miss Granger catch up? Dumbledore suggested. We will be wrapping up here soon. Harry nodded gratefully and allowed Hermione to lead him up the stairs to the room she was staying in. He sat on the bed next to his friend and pulled her into a hug. How are things? He asked her. Not good, really, Hermione responded sadly. We got our OLL results today, and Ron did really badly, she explained. How badly? Harry questioned her with a frown. He only passed 3 of them and barely, she said, shaking her head. So he didn't knuckle down and study, Harry stated. That is his own fault, he pointed out. I know, but I can't help but feel sorry for him. Hermione replied sadly. The pair was interrupted by a knock on the door. Fred and George entered at Hermione's acknowledgement and froze briefly at the sight of Harry. Well, if it isn't the Lord Potter and the Lord Black, Fred said with an elaborate bow. And what brings a fine man of such breeding to the company of us lowly peasants? George added with a bow of his own, grinning stupidly. Hello, Fred. George, Harry greeted the pair with a shake of his head. Have you come to congratulate our fair lady here on her exemplary exam results? Fred asked. I didn't know the results were coming today, Harry said truthfully. How did you? Harry asked his friend. Well, she only went and got all O's, of course. George answered for her. I got 1 E, Hermione pointed out with a scowl. Defense against the dark arts, she explained to a shocked Harry. We didn't get enough practice, it seems, she added with a deeper scowl. You still did very well, Harry praised, and hugged her again. You should be proud. What about you, Harry? Hermione questioned him. What are you going to do without O's or Newts? What does a man of such wealth need with exam results? Fred asked haughtily. He has more gold than the Ministry of Magic. One does not need exams. George added with another elaborate bow. That is true, Harry mused, with a grin, noticing the offended look he was getting from his friend. Surely you don't mean that, Harry? Hermione asked in disbelief. No, Hermione, Harry appeased the girl, chuckling. I already did my ODLs, he informed her. When, the girl asked disbelievingly. In January, Harry replied with a shrug. And? She asked with a raised eyebrow. And what? Harry returned with a grin. How did you do, you prat? Hermione asked impatiently, swatting the boy on the arm. I did fine, Harry answered with another grin. How did you do exactly? Hermione asked irritably, standing and placing her hands on her hips. Okay, Harry conceded with a shake of his head. Elgar, he called. The elf appeared and looked at Harry expectantly. Could you please fetch my ODL results? He requested of the elf, who simply bowed and vanished. How many elves do you have? Hermione asked with a frown. They need our magic to survive, Hermione, Harry pointed out. They die if they do not find a wizard to serve, he added, in explanation. I didn't know that, Hermione whispered. Now you do, Harry said with a shrug. Elder popped back into the room and handed Harry the thick envelope he had received months before. He handed it to Hermione, who began to read. To Lord Harry James Potter, please find enclosed the results of you ordinary wizarding level examinations. You should be very proud of your achievements, and it was a pleasure for both Professor Tofty and I to administer the tests for you. Warmest regards, Griselda Marchbanks, head of the examination board. Grades available. OP outstanding. Exceeds expectations. E? Acceptable. Poor. That's dreadful. To a troll. Please note that a plus symbol after a letter indicates that extra credit has been awarded for the subject. The plus symbols indicate that an additional ODL has been given. Examination results for Harry James Potter. Ancient Runes. Oopshu. Arithmancy. Astronomy. O. Care of Magical Creatures. Charms. O+. Defense against the Dark Arts. O++. Please see additional notes. Julian O++. Please see additional notes. Herbology. History of Magic. Potions. O. Transfiguration of O+. You have achieved a total of 15 ADWs at a grade of outstanding. Additional notes. After much discussing between me and Professor Tofty, we have unanimously decided that the magic you have demonstrated is way beyond that of school-level ability. Therefore, we have agreed that if you complete the theory work of your annuity-level education, then we will be happy to award you your annuity Ace. Also, based on your practical ability, we are expecting you to achieve similar grades to the ones shown above. In addition to this, we have discussed 2 of your grades in particular with Alistair Moody, Defense against the Dark Arts and Dueling. We all agree that you are particularly beyond the level of both Odo and Nati in these subjects and offer you the chance to obtain a mastery in both. Supervised by Alistair, who has agreed to supervise the theory work, having personally vouched for you dueling ability and skill in defense against the Dark Arts. Please contact Alistair Moody when it is convenient for yourself, and he will explain the process to you. I look forward to meeting you again. Griselda Marchbanks. Hermione just looked at her friend in awe. Well? George asked impatiently. Hermione unconsciously passed the parchment to the redhead and continued to stare at Harry. One of the twins let out a low whistle of appreciation. 15 owls at outstanding, Fred said in disbelief. How the hell did you manage it? He asked. Arcturus showed me how well both my parents and grandparents did, Harry said sadly. I didn't want to disappoint them, so I worked really hard, he explained. They would be very proud of you, Harry, Hermione said quietly. And you should be proud of yourself, she added with a smile. Thank you, Hermione, Harry said sincerely. There was another knock on the door, and Bill Weasley entered looking a little nervous. "Could I have a word with you, Harry?" he asked the teen quietly. Harry nodded and followed the man from the room. "I just wanted to thank you," Bill said, running his hand through his long red hair. "For dealing with Nott. The twins told me he was one of them that attacked the burrow," he explained. "Yeah, he was one of them," Harry replied. "And I'm sorry for your losses, Bill. They meant a lot to me," he added sincerely. Bill smiled at the younger man. "It has taken a long time to start dealing," he admitted. "Until I got the letter from the twins. I thought it was a mistake I made with the wards that killed them." "No," Harry said firmly. "The wards were fine." Bill just nodded. "Do you know who else was involved?" he asked. "Rill and Rookwood," Harry answered without hesitation. Bill growled angrily. "I'll get those bastards," he vowed. "I would do exactly the same," Harry replied with a nod. "If you need any help, I'm here for whatever you need," Harry informed the man, genuinely. "Thank you, Harry. I really appreciate it," Bill responded, offering his hand, which Harry took. "Anytime," Harry returned. Bill smiled at the younger man and left. Harry entered Hermione's room again and was stopped in his tracks as the Potter family ring glowed a deep gold and sent a warm wave of magic through him. "Harry, are you okay?" Hermione asked frantically, seeing her friend pause suddenly. "I'm fine," Harry answered with a smile. "Actually, I'm better than fine," he added. "What is the date?" he asked confusedly. "It's just gone midnight, so—" "Oh, Harry, it's your birthday," Hermione exclaimed. Harry smiled. Arcturus had been right. His Potter ring now recognized him as being of age. He smiled at the new knowledge the ring had given him. Potter Manor can be found 10 miles west of the most southern point of Mount Snowdon, Wales. Lord Voldemort was in a towering rage. It had been several hours since Lucius had returned injured, and there was no sign of Greyback and his fellow werewolves. The Dark Lord had concluded that they had been killed by Potter, and that did not sit well with the man. The remaining werewolves would be very reluctant to continue serving him. It may take a firm hand to keep them in line. He had given Lucius the courtesy of checking his wound to ensure that it was not a curse wound, and luckily for the man, it was not. He will be punished for his cowardice, of course. That was a certainty. He himself could not confront the boy yet. He needed that damned prophecy. Something he had already formulated a plan to obtain. Lord Voldemort knew he needed a show of strength. He could not allow Potter to keep thwarting him the way he was, and he had just the thing for it. He smirked evilly at his plan. Not only would it show Potter that he would not just sit back and allow the liberties the boy was taking, it would certainly test him. He smirked again and set to work to put his plan in motion. Break. Albus Dumbledore left the meeting of the Order of the Phoenix in a saddened state. Severus was not the most pleasant of men, but he had been loyal to him for many years. Loyal to the memory of Lily Potter, a loyalty he had neglected to bestow upon her only son. He arrived in his office and sat behind his desk absent-mindedly, stroking the plumage of his faithful friend. Dumbledore shook his head. "If only you would have treated Harry better, he would have moved mountains to help you, my friend," he said to himself. "He is not his father, not in any way," he added thoughtfully. Albus would mourn for his friend, assuming that he was of course dead, something he had very little doubt of, but he would have to continue the way he had when he lost his friend Hagrid. Thoughts of the half-giant still tugged painfully at his heart, a death he would never fully get over, similar to that of his sister Ariana. "Horace," he suddenly said, shooting to his feet and startling the orange creature. "Perhaps he can be convinced to come out of retirement and teach in the safety of the castle," he mused. Fawkes trilled in agreement. Break. Harry left Grimmauld Place feeling nervous, a feeling he had not felt for quite some time. He was torn. He did not know if he should go straight to Potter Manor, or wait for a while and let everything sink in properly. He paced the pavement outside the Black House, thinking furiously. More than anything, he wanted to go, but he did not want to be disappointed. He didn't know what condition the house would be in, and he just did not know what to expect. He had high expectations, his family home, having seen it in the Pensieve, but he did not know if he had simply been caught up in the moment, and in reality it would not live up to the expectations he had. He made his mind up. He would have to face it sooner or later, and he would rather deal with it now than have thoughts that may distract him when he needed to be focused on Riddle. He steeled himself and dissipated away from the London street. He appeared in front of some very tall wrought iron gates, with the Potter crest depicted proudly in the center. The first thing he noticed about the area he was in was how thick and fresh the air was. He turned away from the gates to find himself facing a large expanse of land that he knew in the daylight would be lush and green. In the distance, he could see a thick gathering of trees that stretched right across the skyline. Clearly, the Potters liked their privacy. There was no sign of any other dwelling in sight. He turned back towards the gate and placed his hand on the family crest, his Potter ring glowing gold as the gate allowed him entrance. As he stepped across the threshold of the property, there was a gentle pop, and he was faced by a very stern-looking house elf. "Whose be you?" the elf asked firmly. Harry's heart jumped in recognition of the creature standing before him. "You must be Maisie," he said to the elf with a warm smile. "I'm Harry Potter," he added in introduction. The elf frowned and looked at him critically. "Maisie does not know a Harry Potter," the elf replied. "She knows Master James and Mistress Lily Potter, but not Harry," she added, still frowning. "Master James and Mistress Lily were my mother and father," Harry explained sadly. "Yours be the baby they hid to protect," Maisie exclaimed in realization. "But you is a man now," she said, clearly confused. "Today is my 16th birthday," Harry informed her. "But where be Master James and Mistress Lily?" "Maisie has not seen them seeing you were in Mistress Lily's tummy," Maisie asked. "They were killed by the man they hid me from," Harry explained. The elf sunk to the floor and began to sob. "That's not being fair," she wailed. Harry kneeled down and placed an arm around the distraught elf. "No, it isn't fair," he agreed in a whisper. "But I will get the man who got them," he vowed to the creature. The elf looked up at him in awe, her eyes still shining with tears. "Uses very strong magic like Master Charles," she whispered. "Nessie can feels the Potter magic in you and the magics of the Blacks like Mr. Storia," she added. "Yous must be their bloods to have both magics," she said firmly. Harry held up his hands to show the family rings that he possessed. "I am Lord Potter and Lord Black now," he told her sadly. "Wow," the elf intoned in disbelief. "Then yous has to be a very important wizard, Lord Potter, sir," the elf proclaimed, getting to her feet and bowing. "Maisie would be honored to serve you." "It's okay, Maisie. Just call me Master Harry the same way you did my grandfather and father," he requested. "Naturally can do that, Master Harry," the elf said, attempting a smile that was clearly strained. "You don't have to pretend to be happy, Maisie," Harry said, seeing the effort the elf was going to. "It's okay to be sad. Maisie is sad that Master James and Mistress Lily is gone." The elf admitted shyly. "It makes me sad too," Harry replied, unashamedly. "How about you? Show me around," Harry asked, hoping to distract her from the mood that had set in. "Maisie can do that, Master Harry," the elf agreed with a nod and turned to lead him to the house. Harry looked up to view his family home for the first time from the outside. It was simply beautiful. It was an old stone building with thick oak beams surrounded by a more modern plaster on the top half of the property. The bottom half was weathered stone that was clearly well maintained, and the windows were oak framed and very thick. There were well-kept bushes interspersed sporadically throughout the grounds, and in the distance you could see there were stables and other buildings where livestock was kept and cared for. Maisie led Harry to the very thick oak front door embossed with the Potter crest. She placed her hand on the crest, causing the door to open and giving Harry his first look inside. It was decorated very similarly to how he had seen it in the Pensieve. The opulent oak furniture was still here, as was the staircase, with the gold banisters snaking the length of them. "Wow," Harry said in awe. "It was much better being here in person than in someone's memory. You've done very well to maintain it," he said to Elf, who began to blush. "Massey does try, Master Harry," the elf replied shyly. "Would you like Massey to show you around?" she asked excitedly. Harry nodded at the elf, who took his hand and began pulling him to show him the rooms on the ground floor. "This," she said as they entered a room, "is the main parlor where his guests are shown to," she explained. The room was decorated similarly to that of the entrance hall, but felt a little more homely. "And this," she said, pulling him through the room and into the next, "is the gathering room where we host parties and balls," she explained. Harry found himself in a very large hall with a huge golden chandelier hanging from the ceiling. It was largely empty, but the floor was shiny and obviously cleaned regularly. The tour continued with Maisie showing Harry the kitchens, other parlors, and a potions area. She finally led him to a staircase that led downwards underground. "This room is the training room," she informed him, leading him down the stairs. "Master Charles spent lots of time here," she explained, clicking her fingers, causing the room to fill with light. Harry thought his training room was well equipped. It was nothing compared to this. The room ran through the entirety of the ground floor and was full of various pieces of gym equipment and areas to practice spell work. He knew he and Sirius would be spending much time down here. He noted that there was a bookshelf in one corner of the room, something he would look at a later time. "Could you show me the upstairs, please, Massey?" Harry asked. "Of course, Master Harry," the elf responded with a smile. The elf led him back through the house and to the staircase in the entrance hall. She didn't have to half-drag him up the stairs as he ran ahead of her, seeking one room in particular, and he found it instantly. He opened the door to find the room looking exactly the same as it had in Arcturus' memory. He approached the bed that his old friend had recovered and when he had been injured by Grindelwald and placed his hand on the pillow lovingly. "I made it here," he whispered. "Did you know the Lord Black?" Maisie asked him. Harry nodded. "He was a very good friend," Harry answered quietly. "I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him. He was a naughty man," Maisie declared, placing her hands on her hips. "He wouldn't take his potion." She huffed, clearly, still annoyed by Arcturus. Harry chuckled. "He was the best man I've ever known. But you're right, he was a pain," he said, chuckling again. "Are there only bedrooms up here?" he asked. "No, Master Harry. There's lots of bedrooms, but there's also the office and the library," Maxie explained. Harry nodded. "Okay, lead the way," he instructed. They exited the room and made their way around the long circular hallway and paused a thick, highly polished door. "This is the office, Master Harry, but Maisie hasn't been able to get into it and cleans it," she said sadly. Harry placed his hand on the handle and felt a sharp pain. He immediately pulled away and looked at his hand to see a cut slowly healing. "Blood ward," he mumbled with a frown. The door opened and the pair stepped inside. There were lots of books adorning the shelves that were on the wall. There was little else in the room except for a desk and a comfortable chair. There was a thick layer of dust coating the entirety of the room. Clearly it had not been used for many years. Harry approached one of the shelves and removed one of the large tomes from it. He blew the dust off of the cover and wiped away what did not come away with his hand. Punishing the enemy, torture, and taunting. The book had no indication of an author, and he found that the entirety of it was handwritten as he opened it. He read a description of a curse and found himself sickened by it. The picture was of a wizard pointing his wand at a man and peeling strips of flesh from him. "Carnus cortices," he mumbled, shaking his head. Clearly the book was full of very dark magic, and he doubted the other books in this room were very friendly. Clearly his grandfather took his defense very seriously. He knew he was not a man who would use these types of curses. Not to torture someone for fun. This room would be useful. He would be able to study these books, as distasteful as they were, and have a much better defense for particular types of curses. He could see the book had handwritten notes in them, labeled as shields and counter curses. He placed the book back on the shelf. This room would certainly come in handy, and maybe he could even learn some new spells from here. This was war after all. But he would not torture any man for no reason. That went firmly against his own morals, and he knew he would be insulting the memory of his ancestors if he was to do such a thing. He was by no means a light wizard, but he certainly was not dark either. "You can clean in here when you want to, Maxley, but just be careful. These books aren't very nice," he explained to the elf. "Shall we go to the library?" he asked. "Maisie will take you as there now, Master Harry," the elf replied. Maisie took the lead once more and led Harry to a large set of double doors much like the front doors of the house. She pushed them open to reveal a library that completely staggered Harry. It was huge, and there was shelf upon shelf of books. "There must be thousands of books here," he said in complete awe. "There's his Master Harry," Massey said with a nod. "Many, many books," she added. Harry began making his way through the room in a trance, at the amount of knowledge it must contain. He could see the sections were labeled clearly by subject and category. He stood in the middle of the room and just took it all in. It was simply magnificent. "Hello there, young man," a voice cut in, pulling him from his stupor. Harry turned towards where the voice had come from, and his heart jumped into his throat. "Now, you're not my son, James, so who are you?" the voice of Doria Potter asked. Harry stood facing a large portrait of his grandparents, both looking at him with curiosity. The painting must have been done not long after they had gotten married because both occupants looked very youthful still. His grandmother was as beautiful as he remembered her, and his grandfather looked very alert and as well built as Harry remembered. He swallowed and composed himself before answering. "I'm Harry," he said to the portrait. "It never is," Doria exclaimed. "But you are a grown man. How old are you?" she asked with a frown. "It is my 16th birthday today," Harry answered, a little hurt that his grandmother didn't believe it was him. "Early maturity," Charles cut in proudly. "Take after your grandfather," he added with a grin. "It's been said a lot," Harry responded. "Come closer," Doria requested. Let me get a better look at you. Harry obliged and stepped closer to the portrait. Doria looked at him critically, putting every last detail under scrutiny. Her eyebrows shot up as her eyes met his. It is you, she whispered. You have her eyes, but you look like a black, she said in awe. And why has it taken you 16 years to visit your grandparents? She asked sternly with a frown. This is the first time I've been in this house, Harry explained. And why is that? Charles asked firmly, clearly not happy about it. Why would James not bring here? He added. My parents were killed when I was just over a year old, Harry revealed, barely above a whisper. Doria's hand shot to her mouth in shock, and Charles simply looked murderous. How? He growled out, his eyes ablaze in fury. Voldemort, Harry answered, shaking his head. The Pettigrew boy sold them out, Charles stated angrily. Harry just nodded. Well, why didn't Sirius bring you? Doria asked, her eyes full of tears. Everyone thought he was their secret keeper. He was in Azkaban for 12 years and was only recently declared innocent. Harry explained. Bastards, Charles spat. Who raised you? Doria questioned with a frown. My mom's sister and her husband, Harry replied bitterly. You were raised by muggles? Charles asked in outrage. I didn't know I was a wizard until I got my Hogwarts letter, Harry said with a shrug. Charles growled in irritation. Is that the Black family ring? Doria cut in. I'm the head of the Potters and the Blacks, Harry told them, showing them both rings. Are both Arcturus and Sirius dead then? She asked sadly. Arcturus's, Harry replied. Sirius is still alive, but didn't want it. He can't have children, and he's marrying a werewolf, he added with a shrug. I always knew that boy was a bit fruity, Charles declared. He and that Lupin boy, I take it. No, Harry said firmly. He's marrying a woman. How did Arcturus die? Doria questioned. Rudolphus Lestrange, Harry spat. Cursed him in the back when I was fighting Voldemort, he explained. That madman is still around, Charles asked. I thought Dumbledore was dealing with him, he said, shaking his head. He tried to kill me the night he got my parents, but the curse backfired and got him instead. But he has things that kept him alive, Harry explained. You were hit by the killing curse and lived, Doria asked in shock. Twice, Harry mumbled bitterly. It seems you have some explaining to do, young man, Doria intoned firmly with a frown. Harry sighed and nodded his head. I guess I should start at the beginning, he suggested. Both Charles and Doria just nodded their agreement and waited for Harry to explain everything. Harry explained his life in its entirety to his grandparents, who exhibited a maelstrom of emotions from sadness, anger, pride, and gratitude. He told them all about life with the Dursleys and his years at Hogwarts. He told them about his encounters with Voldemort, the Manors, and even the Chamber of Secrets, and all about the tournament. He told them about what happened in the graveyard and how Arcturus had saved him, taught him all about his family, and gave him the spell books so he could learn to fight. He went on to tell them about the last year of his life and all the things he had done, the killing, the duels, and fighting Voldemort. When he was finished, he was breathless, and his mouth was dry. His grandparents just looked at him with pride shining in their eyes. That's not a life you should ever have had, Charles said sadly. What the hell was that idiot Dumbledore thinking? He asked with a frown. I've spoken to him about everything, and he did what he thought was best, Harry explained. I don't think he ever did anything to put me in danger, but we all make mistakes. He's trying to make up for them now, he added. If I was still there, I'd still curse that old fool, his grandfather replied with a growl. You just hate the man because of the whole Grindelwald thing, Doria cut in a frustrated tone. I hate him because he's a get. Charles retorted petulantly. Let it go, Charles. This isn't about you and him anymore. This is about our grandson, who you should be very proud of, she said firmly. I couldn't be any prouder of the boy, Charles declared. He killed a basilisk for Merlin's sake at 12 years old, and he could cast a Protonus a year later. I couldn't do it until I was 19, he announced, with a frown. I'm more pissed that no one cared for him, he finished, shaking his head. Not until Arcturus, Harry cut in. He saved my life and made me who I am now. I was pathetic before I met him, he added disappointedly. No, Harry, you weren't pathetic, Doria piped up. You were unprepared and unnurtured, but not pathetic. You achieved quite some feats even before my brother came along, she praised. And, despite everything you faced and went through, you still stand here. Charles said, shaking his head in disbelief, You are a Potter, through and through, my boy, he added proudly. I knew I could always rely on Arcturus, he finished with a grateful nod at the thought of the man. He was a great man, Harry agreed, but a surly git, he added with a grin. But without him, I wouldn't be who I am now. Charles chuckled at the description of his friend. A comfortable silence fell between the three, and it was then that Harry noticed Maisie was still there and looking up at him again with both awe and sadness. Maisie, are you okay? Harry asked the elf worriedly. Maisie is okay, Master Harry. Maisie Newsuse is a strong wizard, but Maisie is sad that she didn't get to look after yous like I should, she replied sadly. Well, you can look after me now if you want to, Harry said, placing his arm around her. I can't be trusted, apparently, he added with a grin and frown. Yous will not be making messes in this house, Master Harry, the elf said firmly. I would do no so thing, Harry declared with a grin and a wink, causing the little elf to blush again. Maisie can already see you. This is one to watch, she responded with a shake of the head. Doria watched how gentle and kind Harry could be. She could see that he could be ferocious and ruthless in a heartbeat, just like her husband, but it was this soft side that she had fallen in love with Charles, and Harry was just like him. Through and through. I can't even pretend to understand what you have gone through, Harry, but both of our families couldn't ask for a better man than you to lead them. Doria said sincerely. Thank you, Harry replied emotionally. Being praised by his grandparents meant everything to the young man. Knowing he was honoring them and their memories was more satisfying than he could ever have imagined. So what are you going to do now? Charles asked him. I'm going to kill the bastard for everything he has put me through, or I'll die trying. Harry vowed seriously, his eyes flashing dangerously. I wouldn't expect anything less, Charles said, nodding in agreement. But do not forget to live, Harry, he added. Do you have a special young lady in your life? He questioned with a grin. Harry flushed a little at the question, but nodded. Daphne, he answered. There's just something about her. He shrugged and shook his head. I know that feeling, Charles said, looking towards his wife. You don't know what it is you feel, but it is warm and comfortable, he stated. You think about her all the time, and you just want any excuse just to see her, he added knowingly. Harry nodded. The man was spot on with his assumptions. Hold on to it, Charles advised seriously. It will be the most important thing to you one day when you finally realize what it is you're feeling, he said firmly. It only happens once in a lifetime. Cherish it and protect it with everything you have. I will, Harry promised. And Harry, his grandfather questioned. You never need an excuse to see her. If she feels the same, she will want you there. Harry smiled and nodded. He had an excuse to go tomorrow to tell her about Natalie and the attack at the orphanage. Now it seemed he didn't need one. Are we going to be seeing more of you? Dory asked. I will be around, me and Sirius, he responded. The training room here is better than the one at my house, he explained. Make sure you look at the books in there, Charles advised. There are some very useful spells that aren't in the books you have and very few alive will know of. I will, Harry replied. Good, Charles said with a nod. Now it is very late, you should get some sleep, but do make sure you come and visit us often, he added firmly. I will come all the time, Harry replied sincerely. Both of his grandparents smiled at him. Good night, Harry, Doria bade him farewell. Good night, Harry returned, giving the portrait a warm smile. He left the library accompanied by Maisie, who led him to the large master bedroom. Yous be sleeping here, Master Harry, and Maisie has breakfast ready for yous when yous awake, the elf instructed. Thank you, Harry said gratefully to the elf. Good night, Maisie. Good night, Master Harry, Maisie replied as she closed the door. Harry was happy. He had not been disappointed by coming here, and it definitely lived up to his expectations, and even beyond them in some cases. He undressed and got himself into bed. It was not long after his head hit the pillow that he fell into a deep and comfortable sleep. Break. He awoke the next morning feeling very refreshed and relaxed. The only moment of discomfort he felt was when he realized how comfortable he actually felt here, despite this being his first time in the house. That moment passed quickly, however, and he smiled. Arcturus had given him his first true home, and now he had another, one that he truly belonged to. He found that his clothes had been washed and dried for him overnight by Maisie, and that she had folded them neatly on the chair that was next to the bed. He shook his head at the thought of the elf that he was quickly becoming fond of. He got dressed and made his way down to the kitchen to get breakfast, where he was told firmly by Maisie to take a seat at the table and wait. Harry willingly obliged and waited for the elf to bring him some food, which she did shortly after he had sat down. "You will not be putting your elbows on the table," Maisie reprimanded him, hitting his arms with a wooden spoon sharply. Yous be just like Master James and Charles likes that, she added, shaking her head. Harry frowned and rubbed where the elf had struck him, but couldn't help the smile that formed at the comparison between himself and the other male members of his family. Here yous go, Master Harry, some porridge and some fruits for you. The elf declared, placing a large bowl of food in front of him. Thank you, Macy, Harry said gratefully and immediately began tucking in. Do we have any animals here? He asked between mouthfuls. I saw the stables and just wondered, he added with a shrug. We's be having a herd of the straws and some griffins, Master Harry informed him. Master Charles wanted a dragon, but Mistress Doria would not allow it, she added, sounding grateful at that. Harry smiled at that. That is what Arcturus mean when he said about his grandfather bringing home animals. Wow, Harry replied. I've never seen either of those. Aren't griffins really rare? He asked with a frown. Those being very rare, Master Harry. Master Charles rescued some from being killed in Greece and brought them home. We have 7 of them now. They guards the property, she explained. I'd like to meet them after breakfast, he said excitedly. They's is being very grumpy and dangerous. Master Harry, the elf told him worriedly. They's only ever liked Master Charles. Maybe just the Sylvestrals, then, Harry replied. He wasn't keen on facing angry griffins today. The Stastrals is also dangerous if you has upset them, Maisie pointed out. Days was Mistress Doria's, she informed him. I don't plan on upsetting them. I just want to see one for real. My patroness is a plestral, he explained to the wide-eyed elf. Can Maisie see? She asked. Harry nodded and removed his wand. Expecto Patronum, he muttered, causing his destral to erupt from the end of his wand. That's being Dorella, the elf said in shock. Who? Harry asked in confusion. Dorella's being the granddaughter of Jax, Mosey explained. They's is 'tis straws we has here, Mistress Doria's patronus was Jax, she elaborated. Harry smiled at that. Then, I can't wait to meet them, he said sincerely. Maisie will takes you when you's finished eating, she responded firmly. Harry quickly finished his breakfast and waited for Maisie to lead him to where the Thestrals were kept. She took him to the stables and entered a large pantry, exiting with what seemed to be a large bucket of beef cutlets. We's has to be giving them breakfast, too, she explained. Harry nodded and gestured for her to lead the way. He followed her to a large area of trees where she placed the bucket on the floor and began whistling loudly. After a few minutes, Harry got his first glimpse of a Thestral, and his breath was taken away by the beauty of the creature. It stood around half a foot taller than him and was as black as the night sky. It had an almost smoky appearance about, but the thing that stood out above all else was the bright blood-red eyes. The beast was followed by several others as it approached and waited to receive its food. Without hesitation, Harry picked up the bucket and walked slowly towards them, so not to startle the herd. Yous be careful, Master Harry, Massey whispered worriedly. Harry gave her a reassuring smile and proceeded. He paused around 6 feet away from the group, removed a piece of meat from the bucket, and held it at arm's length in front of him. The Stostral leading the group eyed him critically but stepped forward after a moment, and gently took the meat from his hand and began to eat. Harry smiled. The creatures really were something to marvel at. The rest of the herd followed the lead of the first and were all eating shortly after. Harry just watched in a comfortable silence, enjoying being around the animals. He never realized how much he truly loved animals, but now he knew he would be doing this as regularly as possible. He was about to turn to leave the herd to finish their breakfast when one of the larger Pastrals approached him and sniffed him curiously. Harry smiled as he recognized his patroness in true form. You must be Jarella, he whispered to the creature. The straw snorted deeply and began pawing the ground in front of him. Harry reached up carefully and stroked her head gently. The straw melted into his touch and began rubbing her head in his hand. Affectionately, You have no idea how many times you have saved me, he informed the animal with a soft smile. Do you want to meet the you that protects me? He asked. The straw snorted again in what Harry assumed was a yes. He carefully removed his wand from its holster and cast his patroness in a whisper. The two Tierslix looked at each other critically for a moment before the real Jarella approached the patroness and began nuzzling it gently. Harry eventually let the patroness fade, and Jarella approached him and nuzzled him before sitting down on the ground with her wings spread. She be wanting you to ride her, Measy said in disbelief. Is that what you want, girl? Harry asked the straw with a smile, to which the creature just snorted. Yos, be careful, Master Harry, Maisie said firmly. This is still dangerous. Harry wasn't paying attention, the elf, and instead carefully climbed on the stroll's back, ensuring that both he and the animal were comfortable. "Let's go, girl," Harry said, when he was ready. The creature immediately stood and began galloping out onto the large field at full speed. Harry, not having expected this, had to adjust himself accordingly, something he did in the nick of time. The Destrel beat its powerful wings and launched the pair into the air and began flying around the field in large circles. Harry found the feeling nothing short of exhilarating, and he was enjoying every moment of the flight. All too soon, the straw began swooping lower and lower and eventually landed in front of the trees. She then trotted gently back to join the herd, and Harry removed himself from her back. They arrived. "That was incredible," he said gently to the creature. "Thank you," he added, giving her another piece of meat. "I'll be back lots to see you," he promised, stroking her head once more. He turned to see a very worried-looking Maisie frowning at him with her hands on her hips. "Use is very reckless, Master Harry," she scolded the teen. "It was fun," Harry replied. "I rode a hippogriff when I was 13, he explained. "If yous be hurting yourself, Maisie won't be looking after yous," the elf said firmly. Harry just shrugged in response. "Shall we head back in? I need a shower and wash the blood off my hands," he told the elf, who just turned away and began walking towards the house, clearly not happy. Harry rushed to catch up with the elf, but was startled as a loud screech sounded from his left. He turned to see 7 large bird-like creatures charging towards him, and his eyes shot up in recognition. The griffins. He knew he was not going to be able to outrun them, so he drew his wand carefully. The thought of apparating away did not even occur to him, something that he would chide himself for later. "Don't run, Master Harry," Maisie said worriedly. "Yous need to stand very still." Harry did as the elf said and braced himself. The creatures slowed down as they drew closer, and Harry got his first real look at them. They were huge, much bigger than the Thestrals, and looked considerably more dangerous. The beaks they had were clearly razor-sharp, as were the talons, which Harry eyed with concern. He certainly did not want to get caught with one of those. The one leading them was a deep golden color, and if Harry wasn't feeling so nervous, he would have marveled at the beauty of the beasts. The others were a variety of colors, 2 red, 2 blue, and 1 a sunset yellow. The final one was golden also, a smaller version of the one that was now approaching. The creature eyed him critically and began sniffing him in interest. It screeched loudly again and turned its attention to the wand he held in his hand. It sniffed the wood and narrowed its eyes at it. After a moment it screeched again in what seemed like triumph and butted Harry forcefully in his chest, knocking him back a few steps. He braced himself again and waited to see what the creature would do next. It approached him again and screeched loudly. Clearly the animal was both proud and stubborn. Having enough of being pushed around by the griffin, Harry stood tall and looked it in the eye. "Stop," he commanded in a firm voice. The animal tilted its head at him in bemusement and screeched again. "Now you're just being childish," Harry said with a frown. The griffin ruffled its feathers at him indignantly. "I'm not going to let you bully me," Harry informed the beast and stepped forward, causing the animal to take a step back. "See, I'm not scared of you, so you can stop your little macho act," he said firmly. The griffin nodded at him once and turned away to walk back towards the rest of the group that followed him, and left the boy and the elf to proceed to the house. "Was yous really not scared?" Maisie asked him in awe. "Terrified," Harry answered simply. "But you have to do things even if you are scared," he explained. "And that's what makes yous a strong wizard," Maisie praised. Harry just shook his head at the elf, and the two entered the house so he could shower and get ready to meet Daphne. "Elgar," he called. The elf appeared and looked very confused until he recognized the house he was in. "Master Harry found his home," he said sadly. "I did," Harry replied, "but I will still be spending a lot of time at the other house," he told the elf, who smiled. "What can Elgar do for Master Harry?" he asked. "Could you please get me some clothes?" Harry requested. Elgar popped away and returned a minute later with some clean clothes for Harry. "You can come here any time you like, Elgar," Harry informed the elf. "I'm sure Maisie won't mind." "Thank you, Master Harry," Elgar said gratefully. "Elgar and Maisie was good friends once, before Lord Potter passed away," he explained. "Well then, you can catch up as much as you like," Harry said with a smile. "Elgar will do that," the elf responded, and popped away. Harry went to shower and get ready to visit Daphne. He had already done so much yet, his day had barely begun. Natalie awoke in an unfamiliar room, and it took her a few moments to remember how she ended up here. The whole of the previous felt like some kind of awful dream, a feeling she was glad of because if the reality of it all set in, she wouldn't have the nerve or courage to even leave her bed. She found that some clothes had been left out for her, so she got dressed and headed to the kitchen to see what the day would bring. Surely it couldn't be any worse than yesterday. She entered the kitchen to be greeted by a large gathering of people. There was a group of redhead boys and men and a girl who she recognized as one of Harry's friends. "Hello, Natalie," Marlene said brightly to the young girl. "Did you sleep well?" she asked. "Good morning, Miss McKinnon," Natalie replied shyly. "I slept okay," she answered. Marlene smiled at the girl. "You can just call me Marlene, Natalie," she told her. "Would you like some breakfast?" "Yes, please," Natalie responded gratefully. She hadn't realized her own hunger until the older woman had asked. Marlene put together a plate of food and handed it to the girl. "Thank you," Natalie said quietly. "You're welcome," Marlene responded with another soft smile. "Why are you here?" Hermione cut in curiously. "My orphanage was attacked by werewolves, and Harry and Mr. Black saved me." Natalie explained. "I didn't know you were an orphan," Hermione said sadly. "My mom and dad died in a car crash when I was little," the younger girl told her. Hermione smiled sadly. "That's what Harry thought happened to his parents," she said knowingly. "He told me," Natalie informed her. "Then he must really like you," Hermione declared. "Harry doesn't tell people things about his life often." "I like him too. He's like a big brother," Natalie replied. "He said he is going to look after me," she added with a smile. "Then you are the safest young lady in the world," Hermione responded. "Harry is good at looking after people he cares about." "And speaking of looking after you," Marlene cut in, "we are going to have to take you shopping. You only have your wand in here, and that just won't do," she finished, shaking her head. "But I don't have any money," Natalie said sadly. "Harry has lots of money," Marlene shrugged. "And so does Sirius. Speak of the devil," she added, as the man walked gingerly into the room. "Are you still milking it?" Marlene asked him with a raised eyebrow. "I'm not milking anything," the man huffed indignantly. "I valiantly fought and killed a werewolf with my bare hands," he proclaimed, posing proudly. Natalie giggled. "Harry had to help you," she piped up, causing Marlene to snicker. "Well, we can't all kill a werewolf double our size with just a dagger," Sirius said, shaking his head. "What?" Marlene asked incredulously. "Yeah, I saw him do it when I was trying to get up the stairs. Turns out he's just as ruthless with a knife," he mused. "And you should be defending me," he pointed out to the girl. "It was me who was there last night, not her," he added, pointing to his fiancée. "Not all of us are as reckless as you, Princess," Marlene muttered, causing the table to erupt in laughter. "Will you stop calling me that?" Sirius whined and pouted. "It's very unbecoming of a man of my station," he added with a frown. "But it suits you," Natalie cut in. "Especially when Harry put the pink ribbons on you," she added, her eyes full of mirth. "He didn't," Marlene stated, fighting back the laughter. "He did," Natalie said flatly. Those at the table laughed again. "I should have stayed in bed." Sirius muttered, "Damn, godson of mine. I can't even get him back. He'd kill me," he added, shaking his head again. "Stop grumbling, Princess," Marlene said. "You have a job to do today," she informed him. "I do?" he asked dumbly. "You need to take Natalie shopping for clothes and anything else she sees and wants." Marlene explained with a smile. "Why can't you do it?" Sirius asked with a frown. "I'm sure she doesn't want me to take her, as handsome as an escort I would be," he finished with a smug grin. "Because it is the full moon tonight, and I don't think I am up to a shopping trip," Marlene replied firmly. "Then a shopping trip for us, it is, young lady," Sirius announced to the girl who was looking nervously at Marlene. "Are you a werewolf too?" she asked a little fearfully. "She is," Sirius answered. "But I promise she is more scary in her human form than as a wolf. In fact, she is more cuddly," he added with a frown. "She has a potion, and she is safe. I promise," he finished seriously. "I hope that's okay," Marlene said nervously. "I'm sorry," Natalie said. "It's just after last night." "I understand," Marlene responded, "but I promise you I would never hurt you," she said sincerely, taking the girl by her shoulders. Natalie smiled. "Can I pet you?" she asked with a grin. "Unbelievable," Marlene said in faux outrage. "You spend 10 minutes in his company and you're just like him," she huffed, pointing at her fiancé, who was roaring in laughter. "Oh, I like her," Sirius proclaimed, wiping tears from his eyes. "Can we keep her?" he asked in a childlike way. Marlene raised an eyebrow at the man. "You, yourself, are more than a handful Sirius Black," she said. But you do make me smile more than you annoy me, I suppose, she added, placing a kiss on his cheek, causing the man to grin. Now go and get ready, you have a shopping trip to complete before we talk about everything else, she instructed. Yes, I must look my best for the adoring women who will no doubt throw themselves at me. Are you ready to fight off a group of crazed women, Natalie? He asked the girl. In your dreams, princess, Natalie replied. If your head gets any bigger, we won't be able to go because you won't fit through the door, she added with a grin. Sirius looked affronted and pouted at the girl. Oh, I like her, Marlene cut in, snickering. Can we keep her? She added, mimicking her fiancé's previous sentiment. Well, that teamwork lasted all of 2 minutes, Sirius grumbled. I'll just go and get ready before I'm embarrassed anymore, he announced as he left the room. You'll do just fine here, Natalie, Marlene said to the girl, pulling her into a hug. Break. Harry arrived in front of Greengrass Manor and the gates opened immediately to let him in. He was making his way to the front door when they opened to reveal a very cautious-looking Daphne with her wand pointed at him. Harry, she asked disbelievingly. I hope you don't plan on cursing me, Miss Greengrass, Harry replied. I've already had enough trouble this morning, he informed her with a shake of his head. What trouble? She asked with a frown. I thought I was going to be killed by a group of griffins, he sighed. And what were you doing with a group of griffins? The blonde asked curiously. Turns out I own them. My ring told me where my family home is last night, so I went, he explained after seeing the confused look on the girl's face. So that's why I couldn't owl you. You must have wards there to stop it, she said in realization. How is it? She asked. It's good, Harry answered simply. It's been well looked after, he added with a shrug. So why are you here? I would have thought that you would want to spend as much time there as possible, she questioned. Well, I do have reasons to be here, Harry informed the girl, walking towards her. But more than anything, I wanted to see you, and it turns out that I don't really need an excuse for that, he finished, pulling the now smiling girl into a hug. And where did you obtain this pearl of wisdom, Mr. Potter? Daphne asked with a raised eyebrow. My grandfather actually, Harry responded. My grandparents have a portrait in the library. I'm so happy for you, Daphne intoned sincerely. I'd like to meet them, she added with a grin. You will, I'm sure that they will insist on it at some point, he said, shaking his head. So you told them about me? Daphne asked disbelievingly. What did you say? She added with a frown. That's between me and them, Harry proclaimed. And it's my birthday, so you have to be nice to me. I suppose I can let it go for a day, Daphne mused. Happy birthday, she finished, placing a gentle kiss on his lips. Ooh, do you have to do that? A voice cut in. Harry turned to see both Astoria and Tracy standing inside the entrance hall, looking very amused at the pair. Ah, if it isn't my favorite banshees, he greeted the pair. Banshees Potter? Tracy asked with a raised eyebrow. Loud, obnoxious, but very pretty, he counted off. Sounds about right, he shrugged. Don't patronize me, Potter, Tracy said with a frown. It should be Daphne you're trying to butter up after what you got up to last night, she added with a wicked grin. And what did you get up to last night, Mr. Potter? Daphne asked. That was one of the reasons I came, Harry replied, shooting a glare at Tracy. Natalie's orphanage was attacked by werewolves last night, he explained. Is she okay? Daphne asked worriedly. She's fine, Harry assured her. Me and Sirius got there in time and killed Fenrir Greyback and a lot of other werewolves. Tracy cut in. Thank you, Tracy, Harry said loudly. How do you get your information? He questioned the girl with a scowl. Tracy just smirked and tapped the end of her nose with her finger. Anyway, Harry continued. Sirius and I were meeting someone when Natalie used the necklace, he explained. Greyback was there with some werewolves and Malfoy. Did you get him? Tracy asked. I was about to kill him when a werewolf jumped on me, Harry answered. The cowardly shit used a portkey, but I gave him a nice injury to remember me by, he finished with a grin. But Natalie is okay, Daphne asked. She's staying with Sirius and Marlene, Harry told her with a nod. Well, I can hardly be mad at him for that, Daphne said to Tracy. No, you can't. Tracy agreed reluctantly. I was hoping to see Potter get told off, she huffed. Well, instead you get to see him being rewarded, Daphne said with a grin and kissed Harry again. I need a boyfriend, Tracy mumbled, shaking her head at the couple. Why else did you come? Daphne asked Harry. Well, it turns out Snape is missing, he told the trio. I'll bet my life that was him who told Tom about Natalie, so it makes sense that he told him about you too. So I was thinking that I should put the Fidelius charm on here if your parents don't mind, he explained. Snape? Tracy asked with a frown. Yeah, he was a spy, Harry replied. Clearly the girls did not know this piece of information, judging by their reactions. Well, my parents are at work and they won't be back until later. Daphne cut in. You can stay if you want to, she added, hopefully. I couldn't think of a better way to spend my birthday, Harry answered with a smile. Great, we get to watch them making eyes at each other. Tracy sighed. If I remember correctly, Daphne said to her friend with a frown. It was you that encouraged me to do something about how I was feeling. Wasn't it you who said something about exploding ovaries? She asked. Okay. Tracy conceded. We don't need to mention that, she said firmly. Wait here a second, Daphne suddenly said and ran into the house. She returned after a few minutes carrying a wrapped package, which she handed to Harry nervously. I tried to send it by owl this morning, but she just wouldn't take it. I know why now. Happy birthday, she said shyly. Harry took the present and opened it to find a simple mirror with a gold frame inside. Are you trying to say I'm vain? He asked her with a mock scowl. No, Daphne replied, shaking her head. It's charmed to another mirror that I have. All you have to do is say my name into it and we can talk wherever you are, she explained. Thank you, Harry said gratefully with a smile. It means we can talk every night instead of just owling, he said, in understanding to the gift. You really like it? Daphne asked nervously. I couldn't think of a better present right now, he responded genuinely. Daphne blushed and smiled at that. The group simply spent the day just talking and sharing stories about their time at Hogwarts. Harry found that he really enjoyed this kind of simplicity and even managed to forget about the war and riddle for a short time. These were the times that he needed in his life where he could just be a typical teenager, something he had never truly had. He was pulled from his small respite of innocence by the arrival of Jonathan and Ophelia, who returned from work in the early evening. Hello, Harry, Jonathan greeted him warmly. What are you doing here? He asked. I just wanted to spend some time with Daphne, Harry replied. But there is something I need to talk to you about also, he added. Would this have something to do with the werewolf attack last night? Jonathan asked knowingly. In a way it does, Harry answered honestly. Then what can I do for you? Jonathan questioned the teen. Well, the werewolves attacked that orphanage last night because a friend of mine lived there, he explained. Somehow he found out about her, and I think he might know about Daphne, he added with a frown. I was wondering if you would let me put the Fidelius charm on your property just as an added safety measure. Harry requested. You can do that? Jonathan asked with raised eyebrows. Of course you can do it, he added, shaking his head. I don't have any problem with it, he continued. You can never be too safe with how things are right now, he mused. After discussing it, they all agreed that Jonathan should be the secret keeper, and Harry performed the charm for them. Having done that, the group settled down to share a meal and just spend some time together. Something that they didn't get to do often with the girls at school and the parents working as much as they did. They had been talking for a while when they were disrupted by the appearance of a patroness in the form of a dog that spoke with the voice of Sirius Black. Harry, we need you. Giants and Dementors on Brighton Beach. Hurry, the dog said urgently. Harry shot to his feet immediately. I have to go, he announced. Surely you're not going to fight giants? Ophelia asked disbelievingly. Someone has to, Harry replied sadly with a shake of his head. Be careful, Harry, Daphne begged. I always am, Harry responded with a weak smile. I'll use the mirror to call you when I'm done, he promised, giving her a chaste kiss on the lips before departing. He really is quite something, isn't he? Ophelia intoned sadly. Jonathan shook his head. I've never known a man to be so fearless and selfless, he said genuinely. The world needs more men like him, he added. Are you not worried? Ophelia asked her daughter, who seemed to be taking it all in her stride. I always worry about him, Daphne answered honestly. But then I remember what he's capable of, and I know that he will be okay, and he will need you to be that strong for him. Jonathan responded with a nod. Break. Harry arrived on the beach into complete chaos. People were scattering in every direction, and it did not take long for him to locate the problem. Around 100 meters in front of him, he could see 3 giants attacking the pier, simply ripping chunks of the construct off and hurling it into the crowds of fleeing people. He growled in anger and apparated again, much closer to the action so he could locate his godfather. He appeared amongst a group of Aurors who were attempting to subdue the beasts with bone breakers and bludgeoners. He shook his head. Don't you know they are very resistant to magic? He asked incredulously. What do you know, Potter? One of the men questioned angrily. Harry shook his head again and banished a nearby heavy beam that had just been ripped from the pier with all of his might towards one of the beasts, catching it flush on the knee. There was a loud crack on impact, and the giant roared in anger and pain as it collapsed to one knee. "That's what I know," he returned to the Auror, who just nodded dumbly. "Start conjuring bricks or arrows, anything that will damage them," he commanded, of the Aurors, who immediately complied. "Nice of you to join us," a voice said from his right. Harry turned to see his godfather standing there, looking relieved to see him. "Well, I could hardly say no, could I?" Harry asked the man rhetorically. "Come with me," he added. "These guys know what they are doing now," he explained, indicating the group of Aurors who were conjuring and banishing a variety of implements. The duo stepped away from the group, and Harry got his first look at the destruction the creatures had wrought. There were a considerable amount of bodies littering the pebbles and sand. It was clear that many had lost their lives. "Dementors?" Harry asked Sirius. "Dumbledore and the Order are dealing with them about a mile that way," he explained, jerking his thumb behind them. "They're fine," he reassured the teen. "Okay," Harry replied. "How about we take one of them each?" he suggested, indicating the other two giants. "You're on," Sirius replied with a grin. "I need to improve my reputation at home. Natalie was so kind to tell everyone how I needed help last night from you," he explained, shaking his head. "If you take yours down first, I'll let you come to Potter Manor and meet my Griffins," Harry challenged with a glare. "Wait, they're real?" Sirius asked in disbelief. "I thought James was making it up." He looked towards his godson to see that he was already charging full pelt towards the largest of the giants. Sirius shook his head and started running towards the other beast. "I must be insane," he thought to himself. "Break!" Harry wasted no time and began running towards one of the giants, waving his wand and causing a powerful gust of wind to begin picking up a large amount of sand and pebbles. He twirled it between his fingers like a baton, and the wind began forming into a twister, which he quickly banished towards the beast's face, attempting to blind it. It worked, but the creature began stomping and swinging a large piece of wood. It had removed from the pier in its fury. Harry knew he needed to act quickly or more people would be injured or killed by the behemoth. "Spinal cord," he muttered in remembrance to his grandfather's notes. The problem was that this giant must have been close to 30 feet tall, and even reaching it was a challenge. "Ah, shit." Harry grumbled at the only idea he could come up with. "This is insane," he declared to himself. He conjured a sword and began concentrating. He needed to get this just right. He apparated onto the giant's shoulder and immediately grabbed a handful of its long matted hair to steady himself. The beast felt the teen on his shoulder and began furiously trying to remove him. Just like the troll, Harry mused, remembering his first-year encounter. With his free hand, he drove the sword as hard as he could into the back of the giant's neck, but only succeeded in causing a deep cut, simply not enough to bring it down. Harry sighed deeply and threw sword to the ground and flicked his wand into his hand. "This is going to be messy," he intoned in distaste. He pushed his wand into the wound that he had made and cast the most powerful blasting curse he could think of. He quickly found himself sailing through the air towards the ground below. Before he could even comprehend what was happening, he hit the ground with a thump and felt his shoulder crack painfully on impact. What he didn't notice was that he still had a large handful of the creature's hair, and attached to it was the now severed head of the beast. He frantically tried to untangle his hand from the head in disgust, and stood when he had done so to be greeted by many open-mouthed people just staring at him. He ignored them and turned to see the giant that Sirius had taken on laying on the ground in chains with several arrows and spears protruding from its neck. Why didn't I think of that? Harry questioned himself, irritably favoring his shoulder. He pointed his wand at the arm and hissed quietly, causing the bone to pop back into place. He hissed in pain and shook his head to clear the dizziness he was experiencing from the healing spell. "You don't have to do things the hard way, do you?" he heard Sirius question him. "Tell me about it." Harry grumbled, turning to his godfather. "I should have used chains," he added. "We live and learn," Sirius shrugged. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Yeah," Harry assured the man. "Not the most pleasant of things to do." "Definitely not." Sirius agreed. The duo turned to see the crowd still staring with mouths agape at them. They suddenly began cheering and applauding the pair loudly, much to their embarrassment. "Time to go?" Sirius asked. "Shall we check on Dumbledore and the others?" Harry asked in return. Sirius just grabbed his godson by the shoulders and apparated them away. "Never do that again," Harry demanded angrily as they landed on another part of the beach. "I owed you that," Sirius shrugged with a grin. The princess thing, he added in explanation. I see you decided to help with our situation. A voice cut in before Harry could reply. Harry and Sirius turned to see a tired Dumbledore looking at them with a grateful smile. We do what we can, Sirius said with a salute and a grin. Harry just shook his head at the man. You make quite the team, Dumbledore praised. It reminds me of another duo with names Black and Potter, he added with his eyes twinkling. Is everyone okay? Harry asked the headmaster. A few Aurors and quite a lot of Muggles dead, Dumbledore explained sadly. Aye, and it would have been worse if you two didn't show. Moody cut in with a growl. Hello, Moody, Harry greeted the man with a shake of the hand. Potter, the grizzled man, greeted with a smirk. Are you planning on asking me for the theory work for your masters? He asked the teen with a raised eyebrow. Actually, I was, Harry replied. Then I will get it sent to you first thing, and remember to do your Newty stuff too. Griselda is keen to get you in, Moody explained. I'll write to her tonight, Harry promised. Good man, Moody praised, clapping him on the shoulder. Everything is good, Albus, he said to the older man. Then we should leave and let the ministry get on with their job, Dumbledore declared. I hope I will see you soon, Harry, he added sincerely before disappearing away. I will see you soon, Potter. Moody growled in farewell before he too disappeared. How's Natalie settling in? Harry asked his godfather. Just fine. Sirius answered with a smile. I took her shopping today, and she made quite a dent in your finances, he added with a smirk. As long as she's happy, Harry said with a soft smile. She is, Sirius assured him. Well, I should get home. It's the full moon, Sirius explained. It will be dark soon, he finished. Yeah, I need to call Daphne and let her know I'm okay, Harry responded. Oh, Harry is whipped, Sirius mocked. Says you, Princess, Harry replied with a smirk before disappearing. Damn, Sirius said, frustrated at his godson's sudden departure before he could reply. The way it's going, I'll be whipped by 2 females soon enough, he grumbled. Break. Harry arrived in the drawing room at the home he had been left by Arcturus, breathing a deep sigh of relief. That could have ended much worse, and he knew it. He rubbed his aching shoulder, grunting at the discomfort it was giving him. He decided that a hot shower would be prudent right now to soothe his soreness before he called Daphne as he had promised. Finishing his shower, he climbed into bed after removing the mirror from his bloody and filthy clothes, checking that it was still intact and breathing a sigh of relief as he found it still in one piece. Daphne Greengrass, he spoke loudly to the object, and waited for the girl to answer. He didn't have to wait long, as only a few seconds passed before an image of the blonde appeared with a look of clear relief on her face. Harry, she asked, with said relief evident in her tone. Harry smiled at Daphne, truly glad to see her again. It's me, he confirmed. Are you okay? The girl questioned him worriedly. I'm fine, Harry assured the girl, who visibly relaxed. I'm so glad you're okay, she mumbled in reply, her eyes began to shine with unshed tears which she wiped at before they could fall. Seeing this, Harry felt a stab of guilt. He hadn't really thought about how his actions affected those around him. He quickly realized that seeing her mad at him was much more preferential than seeing her upset. I'm sorry, he said sincerely, exercising effort to keep his composure. Seeing the girl hurt caused a pain in his chest he had never experienced before. Why are you apologizing? Daphne asked with a frown. For making you worry so much. I know it can't be easy, he explained. It's the only downside to being your girlfriend. Daphne replied with a shrug. It's still not fair, Harry responded, shaking his head. I just thought of how I'd feel in your position, he added with a sudden look of realization dawning on him. Did you just say girlfriend? He asked, incredulously. I hope that is a rhetorical question, Mr. Potter, Daphne stated with a raised eyebrow. I'm not in the habit of just kissing anyone, she added seriously. Harry smiled at the girl, a genuine one. You mean you can put up with me? He asked her with a chuckle. I very much doubt there is anyone I could put up with other than you, the girl returned sincerely. Even if I do spend most of my life worrying about you and what you're up to, she added with a mock scowl. It won't be like this forever, Harry said with a shake of his head. Is that so? Daphne questioned. How will it be? She asked with a grin. Well, once this is over, I just want a simple life, Harry explained. One where I can just live and have some normality, he elaborated. And that is one of the reasons I can put up with the worry, Daphne responded with a soft smile. Harry frowned, and seeing this, Daphne explained further. Most people in your position would want fame and glory, but not you. You just wasn't this over, so you can live your life, she said. It's one of the qualities I admire the most about you and just makes me care about you even more, she added. Thank you, Harry replied quietly. Why are you thanking me? Daphne asked, frowning again. For just being you, Harry answered. For just caring about me for who I am and giving me some of the normality I want. When I'm with you, I can forget about everything else. The war, Tom, and what I have to do. It means so much that you can do that, he finished genuinely. I'm glad I can do that, Daphne replied with a gentle smile. I'll always do that for you if that's what you need. And that's what makes you different and why I can care about you so much, Harry said in realization. What do you mean, Daphne asked curiously. You just see me as Harry, none of the other crap that people label me with, he explained. That's because, to me, you are just Harry. Daphne returned. Yes, you are the boy who lived and all that, but first and foremost, you're just Harry to me, and that's how I will always see you, and Harry is who I care about, she said firmly. Harry smiled at the girl, a comforting warmth spreading throughout him. What about the giants? Daphne asked, worried again. Dead, Harry replied simply. They killed a fair few people, but me? Sirius and the Aurors dealt with them, he added in explanation. As long as you're okay, Daphne said questioningly. Nothing that won't heal in a couple of days, Harry said with a shake of his head. How did your readers go, Sko? He asked, remembering he hadn't mentioned them earlier in the day. Well, thanks to you, I got O's and O-Fox. Mainly, but a few E's too. Daphne replied with a smile, clearly proud of her results. Good, Harry praised with a smile. Moody is sending my work for my master's tomorrow, which reminds me I need to write to Madame Marchbanks so I can book in to do my newbie theory, he explained. Then you go and do that now, Daphne instructed. Call me in the morning, she questioned. I will, Harry said with a smile. Good night, Daphne, he bade her farewell with a smile. Good night, Harry, Daphne replied with a warm smile. After the conversation ended, Harry penned a note to Madame Marchbanks stating that he was ready to come in at her convenience before he got back into bed, the warmth he felt from the care shown by his girlfriend outweighing the dull ache he felt in his shoulder. My girlfriend, he mumbled to himself with a contented smile. Break. Jonathan Greengrass entered the kitchen in the morning and greeted his wife in his usual fashion, before sitting down to drink his coffee and read the newspaper. He shook his head in amusement and disbelief at the headline. Potter, Black and the Giant Attack. The picture clearly showed Harry standing on the shoulder of the giant, blowing its head off and falling through the air. Hitting the ground, Jonathan released a deep breath before handing his wife the paper. He really is a marvel, Ophelia intoned after looking at the paper, her eyebrows rising in disbelief and admiration. Jonathan smiled. That he is, he said sincerely. Daphne entered the room at this point and took a seat next to her father before pulling the newspaper towards herself, glancing at it, a look of worry flashing across her features before she discarded it. Have you heard from him? Her father questioned her. Daphne nodded. He's okay, she assured her parents. Good, Jonathan replied with a nod. You really care about him, don't you? Ophelia asked knowingly, peering at her daughter over her mug of tea. More than I can say, Daphne whispered sincerely. Jonathan put a comforting arm around his daughter. If anyone can do what he is trying, then it is Harry, he said, genuinely and firmly, attempting to reassure his daughter. I know, I don't doubt him, Daphne replied with a nod, leaning into her father's embrace. Then why do you look so concerned? Jonathan asked with a grin. I just worry about what people will expect from him when he has done what he needs. Harry just wants peace and a normal life, she explained. People will expect a lot from him. Ophelia cut in. He's already a hero to most of us, and that won't ever change. He's just Harry, Daphne said with a shake of her head. He just does what he sees as right, she added. A little sadly, you love him, Ophelia said flatly. Both Jonathan and Daphne spluttered at this. Mum, Daphne said pleadingly. Ophelia took a sip of her tea and looked at her daughter speculatively. What is it you like about the boy? She asked. Everything, Daphne whispered after a moment. Such as... Ophelia asked with a raised eyebrow as Jonathan looked on, mouth agape. He's the most caring person I have ever met. He's selfless, she began. He frustrates me, she added with a frown. But I wouldn't change a thing about him. He's perfect, she finished. So you don't care about these things? Ophelia asked, holding up the paper. The fact that he is rich and magically very gifted, she added. No, Daphne responded vehemently. None of that stuff matters. It's Harry does care about, she said firmly. So what makes him different from everyone else? Ophelia asked with a smirk, sipping her tea again. Everything, Daphne replied. What about his looks? Ophelia questioned. He's beautiful, Daphne answered. But that's not what I look at, she added, shaking her head. He's just Harry, she continued. My Harry, she finished with a whisper. How would you feel if you lost him in any way? Ophelia asked. Daphne felt a lump form in her throat at that question and took a moment to try and compose herself. I can't let that happen, she whispered emotionally. It wouldn't be right not having him. Ophelia smiled at her daughter. That is how I feel about your father, she explained. Despite his flaws, I wouldn't change a thing about him, she said, looking at her husband and smiling. You'll figure it out in your own time, she added, still looking at the man she had married. Ophelia knew it wasn't fair to push Daphne into realizing her feelings, but she knew her daughter was very independent and needed some kind of push. She just did not want the girl to end up broken-hearted because she didn't realize her own feelings in time. She took after her in that way, and unbeknownst to many, she was very close to losing Jonathan before she managed to figure out what she had felt for the man. She didn't want her daughter experiencing the same thing and thought that a few questions would get her thinking about how she felt. Something she knew the girl always avoided and fought against if it interfered in her day-to-day life in any way. Daphne left the kitchen deep in thought. She had much to think about, but already knew her mother was speaking the truth. She just hadn't admitted it to herself completely. She was simply scared. What if Harry didn't return the feelings? She would be devastated. That being an understatement. I'm in love with Harry, she whispered to herself with a smile that quickly faltered. I'm in love with Harry, she repeated nervously. She couldn't help the knot that formed in her stomach at her declaration. Nervousness coupled with excitement was a strange feeling, a feeling she was not fond of. Break. Lord Voldemort was seething as he read the morning paper brought to him by one of his dutiful Death Eaters, who fled quickly after handing it to his master. After reading the headline, the Dark Lord crumpled it before tossing it aside angrily. Potter, he hissed, breathing heavily. He had not expected the boy to be as brazen as to confront a giant of all things, and kill it seemingly with ease. He banged his fist on the table as the now familiar nervousness crept in on him. My lord, a voice cut into his thoughts nervously. What is it, McNair? He asked irritably. The giants have gone, the man informed his master nervously. The Gurg is not happy that 3 of his people were killed. Voldemort growled in annoyance. Leave, he commanded. The man quickly obliged with haste, leaving his clearly angry master alone. We must keep you safe, he hissed at his familiar. The snake slithered up the man and rested easily around his body in a soothing manner. I must visit with the vampires, he declared suddenly, standing. I need more allies. He paced, knowing that negotiating with them would be a long and arduous process, but he knew he needed to do it in person. Not only would he have to locate them, which in itself would take time because of their elusiveness and hatred towards wizards, but he would also have to convince them and the creatures weren't known for either cooperation or snap decision-making. For now, things would have to be put on hold while the Dark Lord obtained more followers. Perhaps I can convince more to my cause on my travels, he mused, formulating several plans in his mind. Yes, it is necessary. With that, he summoned Dolohov and Bellatrix, his most devout followers, so he could inform them that he would be away for some time on errands and that they should train the recruits to the best of their abilities. Yes, more time is what I need for everything to fall into place, he said to himself. The wizarding world may get some peace for the time being, but Lord Voldemort would be back and back with a vengeance. Break. Harry awoke the next morning and stretched, still feeling an essence of soreness in his shoulder. He called Daphne as he had promised and then decided that he needed to find a way to stay in contact with Bellatrix, much to his discomfort with the older witch. He showered and made his way to the drawing room where the books of the house were kept, hoping to find a charm or something that would help him with his problem. He was searching the shelves when a tap on the window disturbed him. Frowning, he allowed the bird entry, which exited as soon as he removed the package it had brought. Harry opened the package to find that it was what Moody had promised that he would send. He placed it on the desk, making a mental reminder to look at it when he had more time. He continued perusing the shelves when he came to a book that caught his attention. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them by Mute Scamander, he muttered, reading the title. His thoughts drifted back to the previous day and the confrontation with the Griffins. He shrugged and opened the book, quickly finding what he was looking for. The Griffin is in all likelihood the most proud creature I have ever come across, much more so than its distant relative, the hippogriff. Their beauty is only matched by its ferocity, and they should not be approached. To do so will put you in serious danger, as I found out to my dismay. I spent several days observing a group of them from a good distance and learned very little, much to my sadness. What I do know is that they truly are highly dangerous. Even a dragon will be very hesitant to attempt an attack on a herd, which I myself witnessed. The griffins fight savagely, and the talons and beak cut easily into the dragon's tough hide. They are very fast, much faster than I believed, and attack to kill quickly. The dragon was fortunate to escape. They respond only to strength, and one must stand still. If they encounter one of these creatures, do not flee. They will see you as prey and will kill you. I was fortunate enough to be able to apparate away before the situation became dire to myself. Why the hell did I not think of that? Harry mumbled to himself irritably. After a few days of watching, I was caught off guard by one of the beasts and found myself in a situation in which I believed I would certainly be killed. The creature stared at me and began butting me with its head, seemingly testing my resolve. I somehow found the courage to step forward, and the griffin ceased its test and left me, much to my relief. I cannot be sure if this is an isolated incident of some vague form of acceptance, for the beast returned daily and accepted food from me. We formed a tentative bond, but I have no doubt, had I stepped out of line, the animal would have killed me without question. Again, I implore any not to approach these beasts and be vigilant around them should you come upon them. Too little is known of them, and they are too dangerous to observe for long periods of time. Harry closed the book and shook his head. He truly had been lucky, it seemed. He would need to deal with them at some point, but for now he would avoid them if possible. He placed the book back on its shelf and carried on with his search for some spells used for communication. He knew a Patronus would be far too indiscreet for this. He finally came across a book that seemed useful and soon found something to work with. It was very similar to, if not the spell that had been used on the Potterblack spellbooks. He read the description and possible uses before nodding to himself. He had some notebooks to buy, and for that he had to take a trip to a Muggle bookstore. He disapparated to fetch what he needed and knew he would need to summon Narcissa later to hand her one of the books for her sister. He also wanted to have a conversation with her to find out how her dear husband was doing. He smiled at the thought of the wound he had inflicted on the man. Break. Narcissa Malfoy breathed a sigh of relief as Lucius informed her that the Dark Lord would be absent for some time. That relief was short-lived, however, as she felt the bracelet her grandfather had left her grow warm. What can he possibly want? She thought to herself, worriedly. Where are you going? Lucius asked her with a frown as she got up to leave. Well, while I am free to do so, I thought I would run some errands, she replied. I am tired of feeling like a prisoner in my home, Lucius, she added sadly. You should feel honored having the Dark Lord residing here, her husband replied coldly. The honor is yours only, Narcissa responded quietly. I've lost my son already, and I fear I will lose you too. Lucius just looked at his wife in contempt. None of those fools are a match for me, he said defiantly. Tell that to Potter when you see him next, Narcissa returned with a scowl. Lucius blanched at the bluntness of his wife and immediately felt angry. You doubt me? He hissed angrily, drawing his wand. You can't beat him, Lucius. You saw what he did to the Dark Lord. Narcissa pointed out. He caught him off guard. It won't happen again, Lucius said confidently. That wasn't luck, Narcissa replied. You've seen what the boy is capable of, she added, picking up the day's newspaper and waving it at him. You can't beat him and he will kill you, she finished emotionally. The lack of confidence shown by his wife angered him, and Lucius did something he had never dared do before. He struck his wife with the back of his hand, sending her sprawling to the ground. Narcissa stood in shock, but composed herself. The way she had been taught growing up as a black. She wiped away the trail of blood that came from her lip and felt her face begin to welt. She simply looked at her husband sadly and left the room. She had a meeting to get to. Break. Harry procured a couple of nondescript notebooks and made his way home to begin the charm work on them. He added the spell that would allow the communication between the books and added a few more for good measure. He added a spell that would allow only those with Potter and black blood to read the books, a spell he had found in the Potter Black Book. He then charmed them to shrink to the size of a matchbox when the pen was slid into the binding to conceal them, and added a disillusionment charm on them that would trigger when they shrunk, rendering them invisible. He then placed a few nasty curses on them should anyone else attempt to read them, curses that would be very unpleasant if they were activated. With his work done, he apparated back to the cave where he had met Bellatrix previously and pressed his wand to the Black family ring, thinking of Mrs. Malfoy, knowing that he could summon her through it. He waited for a few minutes, feeling a slight negative pulse of magic emitting from the black ring, causing him to frown. He knew something had happened, but also figured that it couldn't be too bad, or the ring would surely give him much more than a small warning. It was only a minute later that the blonde woman appeared, and Harry immediately saw that she was more pale than usual, and a bruise was forming on her face, her lip bleeding also. "What happened?" he asked quietly, with a dangerous undercurrent to his voice. "Nothing," Narcissa quickly denied, not expecting the hostility in the boy's voice, nor concern she could see in his eyes. "Don't lie to me," Harry demanded with a frown. Narcissa lost her composure at this point and sobbed involuntarily, once before attempting to school her features back to their usual impassiveness. "It's nothing," she said again, shaking her head. "He hit you, didn't he?" he asked with a scowl, feeling his anger rising. "It doesn't matter," Narcissa claimed disbelievingly. "It matters," Harry whispered as he approached her. He wasn't particularly fond of the woman, but he would not allow her to be abused. He promised Arcturus he would look after the family. Even without his promise, Harry hated abusive people, a hate he had gained from living with the Dursleys. "Why do you care?" Narcissa asked the boy in confusion. "Because it is my job as your head of house," Harry replied simply. "And I hate bullies," he added bitterly. "I can handle it," Narcissa said uncertainly. Harry frowned at the woman. "Has he done it before?" he asked. "Never," Narcissa responded just above a whisper as she felt tears welling in her eyes. "It's never right for him to do that to you," Harry pointed out. "Even if it is just once, he will do it again," he explained, conjuring a hanky for the woman and offering it to her. Narcissa accepted the hanky, still feeling confused. "Why does the boy care?" she thought to herself. "You do know I'm going to kill him either way," Harry deadpanned. Narcissa swallowed deeply and nodded. She didn't want Lucius to be killed, but she had begun to accept that Potter would not change his mind, and she knew the risk her husband took by serving the Dark Lord. "Did you know that he led the werewolves to attack that orphanage?" Harry asked. Narcissa looked at the boy with disbelief. "He wouldn't do that," she denied vehemently. "How do you think I injured him?" Harry asked. "Him and his werewolf friends attacked an orphanage full of children," he added firmly. Narcissa did not want to believe that about her husband. She knew he could be cruel in a fight and had even shared in some torture and the occasional rape. The reason she refused to lay with him, not that he ever showed any interest in that after Draco had been born. "He wouldn't. Not children," she denied again, shaking her head. Harry just shrugged. He wasn't going to waste his time convincing her otherwise. "The offer of sanctuary still stands and always will," he told her gently. Narcissa nodded. "Anyway, I summoned you to give you this to pass on to your sister." Harry informed her, handing her the book. Narcissa took the book with a frown. "What is going on between you and my sister?" she asked. "If she hasn't told you, then it isn't my place to." Harry replied, "Just give it to her," he instructed. Narcissa breathed a heavy sigh. She did not like this one bit, but nodded reluctantly. "It is nothing to worry about," Harry assured her. "Just a favor for a favor," he explained. "I don't want to know," Narcissa cut him off. "It will do me no good to know. That way I have nothing to hide," she added knowingly. "Good," Harry responded. "There is still time for you to get away," he tried again. "Just think about it," he implored before he disappeared back home. Narcissa stood in the cave for several minutes, simply thinking. She shook her head and apparated back home to give the book to Bellatrix. She was so confused right now and didn't know what to do. She would be avoiding her husband for some time, at the very least. Break. Harry returned to the drawing room to find an owl perched on the window, waiting for him patiently. He relieved the bird of its burden and saw that it was a series of dates in which he would be sitting his new T-theory work. He picked up the package he had received from Moody earlier in the day and glanced over the requirements he would need to fulfill, most of which he had already done. He smiled to himself. He had already invented his own defensive spells, so all he had to do was complete the very comprehensive theory work, something that would take quite a bit of time, probably a year, he figured. He would begin with it immediately, keen to get it done. He saw his notebook on the desk pulsing with a gold glow, and he knew that Bellatrix had gotten his book. He picked it up and read what she had written. Potter. The Dark Lord has gone to the continent to meet with the vampires and find more followers. He will be gone quite some time. I have been instructed to train recruits, so will be very busy, but will inform you of my idiot husband's whereabouts when he leaves, and when I can, I will be thinking of you. Kisses. Harry shuddered at the last sentence, but quickly smiled. Knowing that Tom would be away for a while gave him the peace he would need to complete his new achy work and, hopefully, kill a few Death Eaters when they ventured out. He was hoping both Malfoy and Rudolphus would make an appearance soon. He grinned evilly at that thought before heading to bed to call Daphne. Break. The rest of August passed quickly, and to Harry's annoyance, neither of the men had made an appearance. He had spent a fair amount of time over the last month in disguise, frequenting both Diagon and Nocturne alleys respectively. Although he knew that Tom was away, it did not mean that he would become lax. So he spent time trying to gather information as much as he could around his other commitments. He did not entirely trust Bellatrix to provide him with what he wanted to know. As well as this, he had completed his new tea theory and was simply waiting for his results to come through the post. Praying that he'd done well, he was confident that he had. He had begun his research on his master's work also, but had not dedicated as much time to it as he would have liked. That would change after today, though. It was September 1st, and Daphne would be returning to school, thus the reason he was stood on Platform 9 Havre with the Greengrass parents along with Sirius, Marlene, and Natalie. He had spent most of his time with Daphne, just enjoying the peace and taking advantage of the time he had with her. They had definitely grown closer, and Harry knew he was going to miss her terribly once she boarded the train to head back to school. A knot of sadness had formed in his stomach at the thought of her departure, and he wanted nothing more than to stay with her. He had even considered going back to Hogwarts for his 6th year, but quickly decided against it. Being at the school would make it much more of a target, something he was unwilling to do. It would also only serve to hinder him in his efforts in dealing with Tom and his followers. He had already completed his education and knew the school really had nothing to offer him. No, his time was much better spent away from the castle, much to his own sadness. "You better come and visit me on Hogsmeade weekends," Daphne said to him firmly. "I wouldn't miss it for anything," Harry replied, sincerely reassuring the blonde. "I'm going to miss you," Daphne whispered sadly. "I wish you would come back." "I'm going to miss you too," Harry responded, trying to ignore the stab of sadness he felt in his gut. He pulled the girl into a hug and held her tightly, feeling very reluctant to release her as the whistle of the train blew. "Call me on the mirror anytime you can," Harry told her with a weak smile. "I will," Daphne replied with a swallow as she wiped the tears from her eyes. Harry watched in sadness as the girl boarded the train and waved at him half-heartedly from the compartment, with a forced smile. Harry waved back, feeling the knot in his stomach tighten uncomfortably. Break. Natalie woke on the morning of September 1st with very mixed emotions. She was looking forward to going back to school, but she would miss Marlene and Sirius. She had grown very close to both of them and was very fond of the couple who were not only fun, but made her feel wanted. She would have breakfast with them every morning, where she and Marlene would tease the man incessantly before they would go shopping or do something fun. The days Sirius was busy training with Harry, it would be just her and Marlene, and she enjoyed the time with her just as much. "Wake up, sleepyhead," she heard the woman she was then thinking about call from the door. "We have to get you ready for school," the voice of the woman added with more than a hint of sadness. Marlene had become very fond of the young girl and couldn't believe that she would be going back to school today. They had quickly bonded, and Marlene felt like a mother, something she never expected that she would get the chance to feel. "I'm awake," Natalie replied, getting out of bed. Breakfast that morning was a subdued affair, taken in silence, and before any of the trio were ready, they had to leave for Natalie to catch the train. They appeared at the platform and remained silent, clearly all feeling quite upset by the young girl's imminent departure. Sirius saw the sadness in his fiancée's eyes and found himself swallowing deeply, knowing that the girl was leaving. He himself had gotten very close to the girl, and the thought of her not being in the house anymore did not sit well with the marauder. He complained all the time, but knew he was going to miss the daily teasing he got from both girls. He shook his head and smiled at the girl who was looking up at him, and Marlene in obvious nervousness. "Can I come visit at Christmas?" Natalie asked the couple quietly. Marlene smiled, her eyes shining with tears that she did not even attempt to hide. "It wouldn't be Christmas without you," she said, pulling the girl into a loving embrace. Sirius crouched down and pulled them both into a hug. "This is what being a parent feels like," he mused to himself. He felt a twinge of sadness, which he quickly fought down. He had accepted long ago that he wouldn't have children of his own. But in this moment, he was hit with sudden realization. "She is my child," he thought to himself as he smiled at his observation. The train whistle sounded, and Sirius pulled a wrapped package from his pocket and handed it to the girl. "Just look into it and say my name, then you will be able to talk to us whenever you like," he explained. Natalie took the package and smiled happily. "Every day?" she asked nervously. "You better," Marlene instructed with a smile of her own. "And you better write too," she added. "I will," Natalie promised. "Off with you then," Sirius said cheerily, although his emotions certainly did not match his voice. They watched as the young girl boarded the train and waved at them from her compartment. She was sharing with Daphne, Tracy, and Astoria. "I'm really going to miss her," Marlene declared, tears falling from her eyes. "Me too," Sirius agreed, swallowing deeply, pulling the woman into his arms. "Are you coming home?" she asked. "Not yet," Sirius replied, coming to a decision, one he knew the woman he held in his arms would not object to. "I will be there soon," he added. Marlene nodded and disapparated. She could do with a few moments alone as it was. Sirius placed a hand on his godson's shoulder, getting the younger man's attention. "I need your help," he said to Harry, who just nodded in response.